recurring themes that I saw in quite a few sessions. And I guess one of the things that I want to do is just share with the community some of the latest big announcements and the direction that Microsoft is taking. So Julie, Michael, Eliza, if I'm swerving away and then I'm saying something that is not quite right in terms of the direction that Microsoft is taking, please call it out. But that's at least my interpretation as I'm like watching all those different sessions. It's like, you know, like if there's a really good show on Netflix and you binge watch it, that's what it felt like with Build, because I woke up at 4 a.m. to watch the two keynotes, right? To do days in a row, waking up at 4 a.m., watching those keynotes, a great thing. You know, just to be first and get that experience and then be able to go to the office and then share it with the rest of the community. But then there were so many sessions that were during the day, and you know, we've got our day job, so we can't really attend all of them. But then just going and watching them, like you can download them and then you can watch them. And a trick, if you're using the old media player from Microsoft, you can watch it at 2x speed. So it's not only happening on stream if you're watching it like online. And that's really good. And because I do long commutes by train, so I tend to download them and then watch them while I'm on the train, just to see what's you know, what's the latest. So right, okay, I think we've got a quorum. We've got Raghavan and Kasun. Rich, hey guys, how's it going? So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. We're going to be covering the latest and the greatest that was announced at Microsoft Build. We're going to be focusing more, I mean, Build is in general just for pro devs, but we're going to be focusing more on the BizApp side of things, the Copilot capabilities, you know, some of the new AI stuff, of course, that was announced. And then just to try and give a little bit of sort of direction in terms of where is Microsoft going with all of that. What I'll start by doing is maybe share a few links that might be very important for people that are interested to know a little bit more. So there's the Book of News. Every time there's a flagship conference at Microsoft, there's always a book of news that goes with it. So I've pasted the link in the chat window. So feel free to go and have a look at it. They give you a high level sort of direction of the things that they're going to be announcing. But also what's really good is that if you want to go a little bit more into the details, you can go and read the blogs that are associated with it. Sometimes there's supporting materials or little videos that you can go and watch to understand what's in there. Julie, you shared the YouTube channel that has you know, some of those recordings. Highly recommended. Again, if you can watch them offline, that's really good. A tip that Eliza actually gave me, and I use that today. In every session, if you go to the Build Conference website, every session will have the videos that you can download, but also the slides. If there is a slide that you like that you would like to reference, you can go and have a look at it in there and then use it in your presentations just to show what Microsoft was saying about a specific topic. So there's a couple of slides that I really wanted to share. So I'll quickly share my screen. I'm not going to go into presenter mode, so hopefully that's enough just to have a look at it that way. But I saw that slide represented multiple times in some of the business application sessions. And it's mainly talking about how the Power Platform is a managed environment that can cater for all the different needs of a big organization. So whether we're talking about managed security, managed governance, managed operations, or managed availability, all of that is native to the platform, making it a really big and appealing platform to be used. And Julie, later on, I'm going to ask you, because that's a question that I asked you when I was at the MVP Summit. What's the future of Dataverse? Given all the changes that are happening sort of within what we're expecting from a data perspective, from a front-end perspective, and so on, but it was obvious that Dataverse is looking like the best a companion for Copilot in general, where you can host your data and all of that. So we'll talk about that in a second. The second slide that I also wanted to share is the different levels of AI. I think that was shared in Ryan Cunningham's session, if I'm not mistaken, and it shows you how Microsoft is envisioning the different levels of AI and agents helping us on a day-to-day basis. So at level 1, you've got a human using a little bit of assistance with AI. And this is something that most of us are doing right now. You go into something like a ChatGPT, or you've got your little Copilot and you go and ask it a few questions and it gives you an answer. So that's current state, and the majority of people are doing that. Now, as we move on to level 2, it's still human-led. But then there's a lot of agents behind the scenes that you can go and interact with. Maybe one that is specialized in HR, for example, one that is specialized in, writing documents, one that is specialized in helping you coding and things like that. So it's still human-led. But then as we go up to level 3, then it's going to be an agent-led workforce where there's a lot of agents autonomously working in the background, helping you with your day-to-day tasks. And the different demos that were done on stage during the keynote were absolutely amazing, where even Satya Nadella himself went into GitHub and then looked at a defect and then went and delegated that defect to an agent to go and implement it. And I think in the second keynote, they were showing how you can go into Azure DevOps, you can add a comment on a specific user story, and an agent is listening to those comments behind the scenes and in near real time generating a PR that would address the request that you had in there. So we're truly moving into that agent-led work as we go into level 3. There's definitely higher levels that we can anticipate in the future, but I think this is the direction that we're taking. Another common theme that I've noticed is that there is a lot of AI front and center that is happening at the moment. So before we used to be used to those little agents that are on the side, or chat bots where you go and interact with them, whereas now this is becoming front and center. Plan Designer is a very good example. Now, if you go to make.powerapps.com, the first thing that you'll be greeted with is that big box, which is Plan Designer asking you what you want to do today. GitHub Copilot is turning into, or GitHub in general is also turning into that experience. So we're moving away to the little box on the side and then making it front and center where it's the main experience. So definitely lots of interesting things happening in that space. So Julie, maybe I'll hand over to you, and then can you tell us a little bit about where do you see Dataverse going in the near future, and what role does it play with all the agent changes that are happening?
Yeah, great question. But first of all, I want to thank Rami and others as well for having me on the call. I saw the build party and I thought, you know what, I kind of missed APAC area because that's where I grew up, right? So maybe I'll join the party. So thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you.
So quick answer to where Dataverse plays a role. More and more internally, actually, when we speak to the leadership team and our partners, it's about Dataverse for agents. So what that really means is, like, if you think about Dataverse back in the day, tailored towards kind of like, hey, very focused on business applications. So now think about it as we're transforming ourselves into, like, how can we build Dataverse that's ideal for agents? But it's already there. So in terms of like where the state of Dataverse for agents, it's already there. A lot of people are leveraging Dataverse without knowing when they create agents, as an example, with Copilot Studio, because that's where you store the operational data for your agents and also your business data. So more and more what we plan to do is really to apply this easily to apply generative AI from Maker's point of view, apply generative AI on top of your on top of the data that you already have on Dataverse, be it business data or operational data. So one of the things that we have currently in private preview is prompt column. That's to give you an example. So you can think about it as formula column, except you can write in prompt. So that's a quick example, but obviously we are partnering up with Power Apps team to make sure that I guess AI assisted experience when you build solution, and it involves creating data models, right? We want to make sure that experience is kind of super smooth and useful for you when you create your solution using Plan Designer with all the different components backed by Dataverse. So I think there's like what they call as data agent in Plan Designer, if I remember correctly. So The other part so that's probably something that most folks are kind of like familiar with in terms of like, hey, there's the Plan Designer. I'm a maker. I want to create an app, or maybe like agents through Plan Designer, or I want to kind of like apply prompt com. So those are kind of like the what I consider as transitioning you from your existing kind of like, I guess, from maker point of view, from your day to day, with adding kind of like agent flavor, right? So the next evolution is going to be more on the autonomous agents. And of course, you can create autonomous agents using Copilot Studio today. So that's great. But one thing that I think have changed a lot in the last 3 months or so is this introduction of MCP. So Model Context Protocol. I know, Ravi, you asked me for a short question, but my
no,
becomes a
this
bit
is also
lengthy.
this is what the community wants to hear. And my next question was going to be around MCP. And I don't know if you have a demo, but I prepared something and I can share my experience. But you introduce it first, and let's take it from there.
Yeah. So I'll show you I think just a couple of slides. Because a lot of people are asking about, hey, why MCP? What's MCP? So this is my interpretation of it, by the way, and the easiest kind of like to explain to folks, and I'll make it super kind of like, I suppose.
Maybe we need to clarify. MCP does not stand for Microsoft Certified Professional.
That's right.
But it's Model Context Protocol. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, yes. Model Context Protocol. So what MCP allows, this standard or this framework that actually was developed by Anthropic, and it's open source as well. It allows your application or your systems to talk to LLM in a fairly different way. And I'm going to show you what we mean by different ways. So if you think of raw ingredients, so imagine like from 2 years ago, when you think about raw ingredients, so this could be data, it could also be tools or actions. 2 years ago, you're probably playing with something that is what I consider as a 5-year-old brain. So when you're working with GPT-4, GPT 3.5, and so on, it's sort of like as if you're working with like a 5-year-old brain type thing. So if you feed it raw ingredients, you might get some antipasto, things that don't require much of cooking. And hopefully it's safe and, delicious, but still kind of like safe. But now with the progression of LLM, as you know that the LLM model actually has evolved quite a bit. So now we have GPT 4.1, Cloud Sonnet 3.7, and then now Cloud Sonnet 4 as well. More and more, this model has become kind of like an 18-year-old. So what I would consider is like, imagine this 18-year-old though is not just locked into a specific host or environment or your ecosystem, but rather any clients that decide to implement MCP, we can unlock not only just the model, but also the different kinds of ingredients, so the data sources or the applications. And that's one of the reasons why people are talking about MCP as kind of like the USB-C, because no matter which laptop or which devices you have, as long as it supports USB-C, we're good to go, right? So to me, I like to think about it from food point of view, because there's a lot of concepts about host, client, and things like that. And it actually can apply pretty well about food preparation. So what we're saying is that, like, just to take an example of the Dataverse as your data source, you can think about it as raw ingredients. You plug it into like a kind of like a lower GPT level, then you're probably gonna get, it's okay, but there's a lot of kind of prep on the raw ingredients to make it look good. So for example, you have to kind of peel the carrot first, or you're gonna have to chop things up first before you kind of give it to the 5-year-olds to cook. But these days with the 18-year-olds, you might not have to do as much. Like, you don't have to instruct it to peel the carrot first or wash the vegetables first. The 18-year-olds kind of like automatically, well, I'm dealing with food, hygiene is important, so I'm gonna like clean this up. So there are some of kind of that analogy that we could apply when we're thinking about MCP, but it's also dinner time here, so maybe that's why I'm hungry. I just put this together quickly.
It's awesome. I love the graphics and the analogy and all of that. But I think what you said, like the USB-C, I've heard that before. It's like universal. You just plug it and it just works. So you sent me a link a couple of days ago just to get me up to speed and have a look at it. I didn't have time to have a look at it until this morning. So I'm like, I really need to prepare something. And that might be a recurring theme for me, but I tend to do a lot of very effective work when I'm on the train. So my commute is 45 minutes. And I kid you not, I started from 0 to fully working MCP connection with VS Code within those 45 minutes that I was on the train. So I can dig the link and then put it in the chat. And I can also demonstrate. Do you have something that you want to demonstrate, Julie?
Yeah, I can do something real quick, and then I'll hand it over to you. Just a moment.
If you can do that, I'll put in the link that you shared with me, just in terms of if someone wants to try it themselves, what they need to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but does it currently only work for the US preview region, or is it available in other regions?
Yeah, it's on the US preview, US FRE environment, and you kind of have to set it up using PowerShell. So some of you who come from the Procode world, you're going to enjoy a little bit of PowerShelling.
But it was straightforward. So I'll just paste the link on the instructions. And again, if I can do it sort of on the train while with a limited connectivity with my hotspotting on my phone, and to get it working, like fully working, it's really amazing. And in a way, Julie, I'm sort of angry at you because you didn't share that with me earlier. It's just amazing once I started using it and just thinking about the options of what you can do in there. So let's have a look.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one that I have done before. So I actually have about, probably about 4 questions, and then I get this visualization. So I'm going to show you now. The visualization may not actually be the same. This is where the challenge with using kind of LLM, right? So what I'm using here is actually Claude. Sorry, I forgot to kind of mention about that. So in Claude, you can have this kind of setting where you can kind of configure your connection. So this is what Rami was talking about earlier with like, hey, go to this website. Essentially the Lens Microsoft.com page. It helps you to kind of set up not only this part here and all the necessary things that you have to install on your machine. So at the moment, you can consider this as a local proxy. And this is how to set it up using Claude now, but you can also kind of use this both in Copilot Studio as well as VS Code GitHub Copilot. So if I were to let me just start from scratch. And again, like I mentioned that I don't have I cannot guarantee that the result's going to be the same, but I'll show you kind of like the process of how I actually kind of made that chart. I'm just going to do copy and paste here. So what happens, and this is the trick that not many people know, when I connect to this environment, I've already created a bunch of knowledge sources that I've used for Copilot Studio. For creating custom agents in Copilot Studio. If you're wondering like, oh, why did you do that? It's a little bit of a fluke because when I set up this environment, it was supposed to be for Power Platform conference, and I was kind of like I created like conferences, conference speaker tables, and then I added that as a kind of like my knowledge source in Copilot Studio. So what happens here is just like I'm just asking it to list the knowledge sources that I have available just to check, making sure that all is good. The reason why it knows to use these list knowledge sources, so this is what it's called as tool. When you look at the MCP server that I've connected, it actually by default comes up with a set of tools. So Dataverse MCP server comes up with all these tools. And in Claude and VS Code GitHub Copilot, you can choose which tools you want to use. Sort of similar to kind of like to the analogy of the ingredients earlier. Hey, I just want to use carrot and tomatoes and that's it. This is kind of similar to that. I just want to use this one, narrow it down to just these two, which is list knowledge sources and retrieve knowledge. And so the next questions that I want to ask is show conference name, times, and speaker info. So I just posted this, and it starts looking at the different tools that it has. One of them is, of course, I give it only 2. It goes to the retrieve knowledge. It starts sort of like what we call as a query rewrite. So when I ask questions, with quite a bit of shorthands here, it tries to kind of like, hey, maybe let me ask a question in a different way, which is show all conferences with their names, dates, times, speaker information. I could also change it to Presso as an example, conference Presso or something. It will be able to kind of determine. Now, you'll notice that there are 2 types of tools. One of them is that actually pretty similar. One of them is read query and the other one is retrieve knowledge. Assuming that you haven't created knowledge sources, I recommend using read query. But when you think about knowledge, because in agents, when you create Dataverse knowledge source in Copilot Studio agents, you can do like this whole glossary and synonyms. So it's sort of like as if your raw ingredients is like higher quality because you've picked it from kind of the best out of the best, right? So as you're thinking about retrieve, as you're thinking about enabling or testing this out or playing around with it, when you think about retrieve knowledge, it's like as if choosing the best out of the best of the ingredients, whereas read query will read anything, all the tables in your Dataverse, which may not be relevant. So it will go through all the pantry, everything in your pantry, everything in your fridge, and go make, ragu as an example. You may not get good quality ones, but whereas if you kind of narrow it down, hey, I really want maybe like beef ragu or something, then, you choose like, hey, only just use beef or something. Or maybe if you're vegetarian, then, use like, high quality vegetables and so on. So it looks like it's come back with some answers. So this is good. So the next thing that I can do is, now this is nothing to do with Dataverse technically. I'm just using the LLM to kind of visualize this information that it already has. So this is where it gets pretty exciting because it knows how to code. So Claude knows how to code, especially and this is all kind of like runtime. Now the challenge with this with this here is, you also notice I may not always be able to produce the same styling of visualization. So let's see. So I showed you a version earlier. So let's see how close it is to the one that I'm making now versus the one earlier.
Yeah, it's amazing how much code it can generate. One of the demos that they're doing on stage, I think it was Evan Liu in Ryan Cunningham's session, where he was doing some vibe coding and adding custom pages or code first pages into the Power Platform, which is a new feature that has been released. But he generated 1,500 lines of code just with one prompt, and the result was absolutely amazing. I mean, this is beautiful. This is beautiful.
Yeah, so this is the visualization. So it's kind of shows like, hey, 3 p.m. looks like kind of like the most popular one. But if I were to compare it against the one that I created earlier, let's see if I could still kind of retrieve it back. By the way, if you want to copy and share this, you can change it to, sorry, this is what I was trying to do. You can kind of copy and paste the code essentially, so that you can share it with other people. But this is what I actually did, update the visualization to include record link to each session. So essentially going back to model-driven app. So if I click on this, let me just click on the next one and open link. So this is my browser. This should open that session for securing your enterprise solution in the age of AI. So there you go.
Beautiful.
So that's a quick demo to kind of give you a bit more inspired about where the world is going in the future. There's a lot of I think forward-looking things that we got to do, and I think our plan is, since some of you are MVPs, our early plan is to put together like train the trainer package type thing, so that you can help amplify. So stay tuned on that. I don't have a timeline yet, but that's still in discussion. But also potentially trying to get feedback from community and customers as well. Like, how do you wish to take this forward, and kind of like get your feedback?
Yeah, I mean, the potential is just limitless. So a couple of months ago, I did a session with Eliza that we recorded where I was showing how we're using Dataverse to host rules, and those rules are driven by data that is in Dataverse. But authoring those rules is actually quite slow and cumbersome. And I generated, using Copilot GitHub, a prompt that can actually help me go and generate those rules. But I was using PowerShell to go and upload that information back into Dataverse, or to understand what the schema is and so on. Whereas now with MCP, the Dataverse MCP, I don't need to be very prescriptive around how to do it using PowerShell commands and things like that, but it knows how to push that information. The other good demo that was presented, and that's another session that I did, is how can we generate schema. So I think there was a demo. I don't know if it was, let me just look at my notes, whether it was Evan Liu who did it or whether it was James Olenek. But they actually used MCP to actually generate schema, to generate the update the tables and so on.
Yeah.
So is that also something that will be enabled?
Yeah. So the one that I showed you earlier, just now, I just flashed it really quickly. That was GitHub Copilot, by the way. I don't think I have that demo particularly ready, but yes. So James was showing the remember the tool. So let me just flash this. By the way, whether it's GitHub Copilot or VS Code, it's about the same thing. So so this is essentially showing, hey, this is my server, and then these are the tools. What's missing from here, which is the official one that you can get from that launchmicrosoft.com page on how to set up your own Dataverse MCP server. What's missing from this that James showed in his build session was create table and update table. And also there's also delete records. So we will think about how we can ship that. It's doable, definitely, as you can see. But we think that before we ship all these things, we need to think about governance a little bit more, or security, because it can get pretty dangerous in terms of like, if anybody like accidentally update, delete stuff, especially.
Absolutely, but then link it to the session that was done by Marcel and Casey Burke, where they were talking about the Git integration with Dataverse. And then you get this option where it can go and do an update in a dev environment and generate a pull request for someone to go and have a look at. I'll put the link of that session in there. This is like a little bit lower level geeky, and I really enjoyed that session. And I've worked closely with Casey and Marcel as well in the past. But it's just amazing the way we're heading. And I think what James was also saying is that the experience, or the way we're going to be building apps in the future, is going to shift from leveraging some of those AI capabilities and agents into, getting them to do the majority of the heavy lifting for us, and us focusing more on the creative aspect of how that application should be put together, what is best experience for the users, and so on. So maybe this is a good segue. Hamish, I'm going to be sort of picking on you, but you were talking a little bit, as we were talking offline before the session, you were talking a little bit about sort of some of that generative AI that is being used for creating pages and so on. Do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, this is quite a good segue. Thank you, Julie, for what you showed there, because I think that whole concept, right, of where you show the UI or a user interface being generated in real time is kind of almost where some of the Power Apps development is going as well. And so in the conference, they showed this thing called generated pages, right? And so just using, maybe I've got a screenshot here to show you, but this was, I thought, was actually super impressive. Let me just share my screen here. But as part of the demo of this one here, and I'll put the link into the chat as well, but basically, they described the page that they wanted, if you can see my screen now, and uploaded like a little, like just a sketch, right? and then have got an app agent that you talk to, and it goes away and generates a user interface for you. And then behind the scenes, some code and stuff that you can pick up too, right? And just copy and paste and put into your app. So yeah, this whole concept of us manually dragging and dropping components onto a canvas for Power Apps, or even for model-driven apps, right, is going away. So I think we should, if you're an app maker, start thinking about how your role may change going forward with these sorts of things. And I think what Julie showed was like a step further, right? Instead of having like a static app user interface, a Copilot or an agent's just going to generate the UI in real time, right? Depending on you as a person and what you like to see, what your preferences are. Like I can see that, and it's not obviously here now, but further down the track, I think we can start thinking about apps as we know it today are probably not going to be around for a hell of a lot longer. And I think there's a slide or that saying out there that Copilot is the UI for AI, right? And I don't think they mean Copilot as a chat interface. It's a lot bigger than that. Similar to kind of what Julie was showing with, there's a whole visualization of her chatting with that data showing up in the user interface. And so I think it's super exciting, right? And on the other side of that, the whole plan designer thing, you mentioned that too, right? Where you give it a business problem and it goes away and creates. It's that the latest release of that actually is putting together user stories, but also business process diagram of how it recommends or gives you an idea of how to user may use the solution, and then it's also just seeking things like agents as well. So I just spun up an example before where it actually suggested you should have an agent, and it actually didn't suggest an app whatsoever. It was all agent and flow based. So again, it's another quite exciting tool where it can at the moment it kind of generates the Dataverse kind of layer for you, the data model, and it will suggest, hey, you should create this agent and this flow, and it will create the shell of the agent for you. But you then need to kind of start, go into Code Studio and hook up the data sources and the actions and those sorts of things as well. But you can kind of see where that's all going to be heading, right? Where it's going to get to a point, if you're a maker or a developer, you're going to be working with Copilot or an agent, like almost vibe coding your way to a low code app as well, right? So it's super exciting.
The vibe code is definitely a bit more prominent in this conference. I think the example that you showed where they just like asked to create a custom React app, and they did that out of like a napkin sketch and then a little bit of direction is just absolutely mind-blowing. And I think the best part is when they're like, hey, just for fun, can we introduce an 8-bit game part of it? I don't know if you saw that part of the demo, but they introduced like a little game, JavaScript game in there. I'm like that would take you a week to build, but now we're like, hey, just on the side, can you do that for us? It's just amazing how quickly it can generate those things and how accurately it can do it. And I really love the fact that now you can introduce custom React pages into the Power Platform. And again, it goes back to that message about everything is managed, right? So you've got scalability, redundancy, and availability, and all of that just out of the box. Security, all of that is baked into it. So it's really fascinating how this is happening. But sort of switching gears a little bit, and then maybe I'll pick on Raghavan. What is happening? We had a look at sort of Dataverse, and we had a look a little bit on sort of the Power Platform and maybe those custom pages. But what's happening on the Power Pages side? Is there any enhancements that are happening in there that were announced?
Yes, from me. There are a few from Justin which has been announced, which is really cool. And I was so upset by seeing like Power Pages is going down because they introduced Pages as well. So is there a relation like Pages is going to take over, or is it like Power Pages is separate stream? So that was a question which was clarified even at the Microsoft MEP conference as well. So they said it still be, a separate standalone product. So there are like just doing a little bit of screen sharing to see the top picks, So which is really cool. So one is related to security. Remember a few years back, there was a OData leak. I think it was not a leak. And, Nick Doyleman was also posting about like, how can we protect all these things? And it was a big mess. Like if you are not, keeping your data really well. So that was the big leak. And then Microsoft came up with a good Power Pages security concept. And now there is a one step ahead, which is like, you can see there is a Sentinel, which is coming from Microsoft itself, which is a core security product. It is applied on top of that. I was trying to run the deep scan. It's still running. But overall, it is like really cool where, the one step ahead, it contains the WAF as well as, like the CDN and where are the loopholes, whether your tables are really secured, all those kind of stuff, which is really a top pick for me. And then in terms of the agent experience, I think you might have already seen every Power Pages site already got an agent. The interesting thing now in the build is you can have multiple agents. I can zoom in a little bit here. So you can see you can add a multiple agents, which is like a agent to agent protocol kind of, like a scenario here where you can see you are chatting with an agent A, and then you can also switch to agent B at the same time. Right, so which is a top pick and really cool. I think this is going to be the game changer because you don't need to stick on with one single thing. Where if you have a different agents doing some different things, where you for your enterprise scenario, you can imagine what is the power. And then my third pick is I think this is the one which has been the favorite for all the time. I think we did the session last year, the New Zealand Business Summit as well. So using vibe coding, and now Power Pages allow you to bring your own code apart from the liquid language and then your own languages, other things, where now you can actually bring the Power Apps component or PCF or your vibe coding straight into your Power Pages, which is one of the top pick. And I was so excited to see, I think one of the, whomever recorded this, you can see they were using the Cursor IDE, which is my favorite. Like it comes up with, cloud and other things. So which is super cool. Not blaming on VS Code, still Cursor is still one of the top pick. I think that's the Power Pages update.
Absolutely. Nice. And now with all those agents that are being created, and we talked a little bit about security. Hamish, you were telling me about the agent feed, right? I think that was a really cool feature that they introduced. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I don't know if I've got a screenshot of it, but basically the agent feed, right, is it's to do with the way where Power Apps is going, right? So instead of having apps where you are entering data and fields in a form, it's going to completely change to basically an agent panel of agents down one side, and in the middle you've got your agent feed, and it's just a feed of what are your agents doing, and then it'll pop up to the top things like this agent needs your help, it's got stuck, and then you click on that little agent, that panel of where it's got stuck, and it'll open a form in the context of what you need to help the agent with, and then you'd put in, maybe it's missing a bit of data it needs or something, and you'll manually type it in. So this whole concept of having these apps and forms and stuff, a lot of that's going to go away, and I guess the vision is you have all these agents, and you're as an agent boss or an agent manager, you will have an app that manages all that, and then as the agents get stuck or they need help, they'll point you to where you need to see a user interface to help it go the next step. So I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing concepts, right? But I think it's super interesting. I think someone put I think Eliza put a screenshot into the chat there about what that may look like. So it all looks very much like it looks like Power Apps. It still looks like model-driven apps and things, but that's so I don't think those apps and things are going away, but it's the way users interact with them and and use them is completely going to change. But you can see in all the screenshots and demos and stuff, right? It's still Dataverse on the bottom, model-driven forms and things, but only when you need to help the agent, I think is the concept, right? That we're heading towards. And I think in terms of that slide you showed with like the 3 levels of AI, that's getting more towards the third end, right? Where you're an agent boss and you're managing heaps of agents. That's where it's heading. So I think in that link I shared there, there's some screenshots and a bit of a GIF that shows how it all works. But yeah, it's a super interesting concept and
Yep.
yeah, quite exciting, really.
Yeah, I think so. So you pasted the session from Ryan Cunningham, the Breakout 128, and I think he started the introduction by saying it's not about 10% growth; it's about 10x growth. And the way you can achieve all of that is by having multiple agents, but also being able to govern those agents. Going back to it's a governed platform, and then you have all those tools to be able to manage all of that and be able to see how it's reflecting. Just like I just want to pause for a second and just say, like I'm a geek in that space, and this is like, you know, my alleyway. And when I said, like, you know, I go and watch those binge watch those build sessions, it is like watching a nice show, and you just want to know what else are they presenting. I think we're in an age where, like 10 years ago, if I wanted to attend a conference like that, I had to pay thousands of dollars to travel across the world and then go in person and attend those sessions, and then you know, pay the fees to actually enter into those conferences and then watch them. Now it's just available for free. You can just download those and then go and watch them. And it's not about fearing AI, but it's about understanding the direction that the future is going to look like. And upskilling yourself, just understanding the art of possible, imagining where you can use some of those capabilities, and then leveraging them into your day-to-day work, or, you know, consulting with your customers and encouraging them to start using those productivity things as well. So with that, I also want to go and pick on you, Nathan. I want to call your agents. Tell me, what like you were looking at that agent thingy. Tell me a little bit more about that agent thingy.
Yeah, agent thing. I'm never going to live that down, am I? So I need to come up with a little more technical term. So this is going to be a little off brand for me, because I'm usually Lieutenant Low Code, but and most people think I can't spell VS Code, but I asked Copilot and now I can. So let me share my screen. So at Build, Mike Stahl, who is one of the architects of PowerFX, was sharing this awesome session about some work that they've done in VS Code to let you work with your autonomous agents in code. And so there's an add-in called Copilot Studio Preview, and you just download this into VS Code, and then this is it here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over, and I've got an agent here in Copilot Studio. I'm just going to copy the URL. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to clone this to my desktop. So I can work with this in VS Code. Rami, when you're going through a tunnel, you can work on this even when your hotspot is not working. All right, why is this not cooperating?
So is it taking like you know, the code behind your Copilot agent? It
is. So I'm going to come here. So I've created a folder. That's the hardest part of it is finding a folder, because usually I just throw everything in downloads. I'm not as bad as the person that saves everything to their desktop. I throw it all in downloads, so at least my desktop is clean. But and so now we've got all of the bits of our agent here. So we've got our actions, we've got our topics, and the actual agent YAML as well. And so this is all going to, let's go ahead and just do a word wrap. And so we've got all of the bits of our agent. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to edit this and then push the changes back. So this is our, let me just zoom this a bit. This is our agent instructions. So you're an autonomous agent. And Rami, in your honor, we're going to say you are an awesome autonomous agent, because I know that's one of your favorite demos to do.
Yeah,
it's changing your surname to awesome. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go and firstly we got to save. And now what we can do is we can push these changes back to Copilot Studio. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so this gives you a lot of capability. And let's just do an F5.
And it will refresh your agent in here.
Yeah, so let's take a look. Cross our fingers and toes. And look at that. We have
Wow.
updated our agent from VS Code.
Right.
So pretty
So
cool.
code first approach to building or improving on your
Kind
agents.
of kind of a hybrid approach. So
Yeah.
I would say if you, I haven't had, unfortunately, I've had all that pesky pre-sales stuff that gets in the way of doing fun things. But I would say start with building it in, at least build the framework in MCS. And then if you want to go and pull it into VS Code to make changes. So I've found building an MCS, it can be, having to toggle between your description and your actions can be a little cumbersome at times. So it might be easier to pull it down here, write out your description, or even better, see if you can get GitHub Copilot to do it for you, and then push it back to MCS and then go into configuring your actions. So
and it's easy to visualize everything that was configured.
Yes,
right?
You've got your entire structure here. So it's all here. And if I pop open let's see if I can drag this. There we go. My file, let's refresh it. It's all there. Yeah. So.
Yeah, you can see everything that is defined in there, and then you can also put it in agent mode. Like you can use GitHub Copilot, and then in agent mode, just ask it to go and update it for you, and then it will look at ways of improving it. This is actually one of the things I really love about a code-first approach, be it using YAML or like the Git Dataverse integration, is that you can actually start running static analysis on it. Because you can train an agent to understand what good and bad looks like. And you can go and tell it, hey, look at what I've done. Can you give me some recommendation on how I can improve it? And you can do that part of a pipeline as well, which is quite appealing.
So this starts to tie into some of the stuff that Clive was showing at GPPB back in Feb.
In February.
So Hamish, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, but I mean, there's a scenario here, right, where, I mean, obviously when we're building agents and we're giving it the instructions and prompts, we don't really know what it's going to do, and we test it and we go away. But in terms of that static analysis, Rami, I mean, I'm almost envisioning, hey, this is how my Copilot's behaving. I don't want it to do that. I want it to do this. How can you advise me, or can you tell me how I would change?
Can I share an example of that? So Rich,
is that the scenario you're talking about?
Yeah, so Rich
actually
got a front row seat to this yesterday at the Wellington M365 user group. So Julie, if you have a direct line, well, actually, I guess I do as an MVP. Nice flex there, Nathan. But to the Copilot team. So I was demoing autonomous agents yesterday, and my agent was told to send an empathetic reply, and it did, but it said, "Hey, I'm sorry you're feeling grumpy today, Nathan." And I was like, "Yeah, no, you should not be doing that." But it's my fault because I didn't tell it don't do things like that. And so these descriptions that we see here on the screen, this is going to be an iterative process, right? As we give it instructions, and we're like, "Okay, you kind of did what I wanted, but I need to tell you what I don't want you to do." And so we almost. So this is going to be changing a lot, right? But at the moment in MCS, once you've changed it, you don't really see a history. And we almost need like some kind of strike through or something to see what it was and what it changed to, so that we can evaluate what it did, what we changed, and then what it's doing. I don't know if that makes sense, but
having it in YAML code format allows you to do that diff as you check in your code. And then have a look at that progression. But just answering Hamish's question, so two parts. The first part is it structured correctly? Did I put the right prompts and all of that? Like give you just a high level understanding whether there's room for improvement. The second part is around testing it and making sure the outputs are good. Now, in order for the second part, which is what most people are interested in, In Casey and Marcel's session, Grant Archibald, who's actually originally from New Zealand, he's the master of automated testing. And he talked about the automation test that you can run on your agents. And you basically use an agent to test your agent, right? So you would set the expectation on what sort of response you would get from asking a question. And as you improve your prompt, you just make sure that it's still within the expected behavior of your agent. So in the session with Casey and Marcel, Grant is doing a bit of a section in here over there where he was talking about the testing capabilities, really like mind-blowing again. And as those things mature, this is going to become our best practice recommendations. Is have you thought about doing static analysis? Have you thought about testing your agents? Is it part of your pipeline? How are you monitoring that it's doing the right thing? Can you have a look at the feed that is available in there and then monitor that and then do it part of your ops progression and so on? So yeah, lots of really cool features. So just conscious of time, we've got a few speakers that haven't said anything yet, and I know they've got a few things to go. So Eliza, you've been sitting there in the dark and just being quiet and
looking
just
like a gamer or a developer.
Yes, exactly. I think this is the cloud advocate vibe. Like you guys have awesome setups and all of that. But do you want to share anything that you thought was interesting, part of the conference?
Yeah, let me share my screen first because I actually want to show computer use agent. So this was demoed by Joe Fernandez in the Power Automate team. And I'm going to show you how you can create a computer use via tools in Microsoft Copilot Studio. First of all, you need a machine. And the nice thing about Power Automate these days is that you can have what we call a hosted machine by Microsoft. So in other words, you can provision a machine and all that maintenance and whatnot will be taken care of on the cloud. So this was all the good work of Ben Xiong Tan in the Power Automate team in Paris. And what you need to do first is make sure that you have enable for computer use setting enabled, and that will allow your agent in Copilot Studio to be able to create a computer use tool. Oops. So let me head over to Copilot Studio. I've created one here as a backup, but we'll create one from scratch. So now in Copilot Studio, in the future, you'll see tools instead of actions. And as you can see, we do have NCPs that will be coming soon. This is a special tenant, so this is why I see it. And to create a computer use tool, head over to the right here, select New Tool, and then you'll see the option of computer use. Now, this is part of the Frontier program, which Joe Fernandez goes into detail in his presentation at Build. I did provide a link to his presentation in my comment to Rami's original LinkedIn post. So if someone could paste that in the chat, that'd be great. But yeah, so you basically select it. And now it's gonna check whether you have any hosted machines, basically. And because I've enabled that machine for computer use in the Power Automate Maker Portal, we see it here. If I didn't enable that setting, you'll see a warning that says you need to create a machine for the computer use tool to connect to. So if you don't see it, you need to enable that setting. So that's one tip for me. And now what you need to do is select Add and Configure. And then this is where you'll have some fields displayed where you need to define the name of the computer use, you give it a description, and you give it instructions. And so the underlying theme across any type of AI feature or agent that you use in Copilot Studio is that whatever you provide in the instructions is what the agent is going to use. So think about it as in when you work with Swagger files, you usually have a Swagger description, and that's how it knows that it needs to trigger this. So whatever you do in here is is very, very important. So I'll just call this demo, and I'll call it register new invoices. And then I'll go ahead and give it a description. So I'm just going to paste in here stuff that I prepared earlier. Now, in terms of the instructions that I'm about to copy and paste, you'll see that I'm telling it where it needs to go to. So in terms of the target URL. And then I'm giving it instructions of what type of task it needs to perform, as well as another target URL of where it needs to go in terms of completing that task. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Now from here, you'll be able to see things like Manage Machine, which will launch Power Automate Maker Portal and will take you to the machine. So if you need to adjust the settings. Currently, I think right now that the team is still working on being able to provide passing of input parameters to the computer use tool. I don't think this is working yet, so that's something that I can't show. So now I'll select Save, and we'll wait for it to save, and then I can go ahead and test it and cross my fingers that this works. So what's happening behind the scenes now is that through that connection that I've set up to the hosted machine, it will go ahead and essentially do what it needs to do in that hosted machine based on the instructions that I provided. And over on the left-hand side, where you see activity, is where it's going to show you what it's processing in real time. So now that we see that the machine has been connected to, and you'll see that it's going to launch an Edge browser session, and then it's going to go ahead and extract the URL that I provided in the instructions and browse to it. So it will take time, and eventually it'll process. And once it's done, so after you click Finish Testing, just like with any actions that you use today, you can view the transcript, so you can see exactly what the computer use tool is doing in each of these steps. And it will also provide a screenshot. So once you've created your computer use tool, you can then use generative orchestration to go ahead and call that tool. So if you watch Joe Fernandez's build presentation, he shows that, first of all, how this tool is created in Copilot Studio, but then how you can chain actions together, including this tool. And he shows that it can also reason over your knowledge. So I believe in his scenario, in his use case, he used like a PDF that had a bunch of guidelines. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So in terms of the Frontier program, like I mentioned, go and check out Joe Fernandez's build presentation. He also talks about like the requirements that you need to have in order to be able to use a computer use tool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's funny.
Eliza,
I should have led. Sorry, Rob. I should have led. You know, in tribute to our former VP of Power Automate, Steven Siciliano, I should have led with, "Look, no hands."
No hands. Yeah.
If you remember that, that was his classic intro for RPA back in the day.
So this feature, when I just put a post on LinkedIn about it, is probably the one that got the most amount of interest, and a few people reach out to me just to understand. Like they said, "Oh, we went into Copilot Studio and we didn't find it." So I'm assuming that's part of a private preview at the moment.
Yeah, so it's, I believe, early access program. It needs to be in the US region, and then you have to have at least 50,000. I can't remember exactly what that reference is, but Joe does mention it in his build session.
Okay. Yeah. I pasted the link to the blog post that announced the feature. And if anybody's interested, I think the link is in there if they want to tap into the program and be able to view that. Awesome. Thanks for that, Eliza. And yeah, so as we're getting to the end, I just want to check. Rich, you had a few use cases that you thought were interesting that came out of Build. Do you want to quickly walk us through them?
I posted it in two teams into the chat, but I'll share this the screenshot of it, right? So you can see what we're talking about. But if you get time, that's a good session. If you want to look at, like I've been looking at, we build lots of stuff, but sometimes it's useful to see how we'll be building things for Microsoft Teams as well, not just Copilot into just its agent standalone and Power Platform stuff, but in Teams as well. Think about that area. So it's quite a good one. There's loads of demos in it, but if you go to the 46, 47-minute mark, there's LexisNexis Protege, which is a third-party like AI bot that you can invite. It's a new feature. I think it's not available on Teams yet, but it's coming. Invite an agent to your chat, or invite an agent to your meeting, and then that will assist you in helping you make decisions. So it's like bringing an expert into your meeting, and then that helps them. I mean, it's a full Kool-Aid, everything works session demo, but very slick. But it just shows you the use case of we've got questions about legal stuff. The agent helps them rewrite their clauses and then produces the document for them at the end, right? So like does the autonomous task of all the hard work, all the heavy lifting and the expertise, and the people just turn up and just poke it and make it say stuff. So that was me. Nice. But yeah, if you watch that clip, it'd be great.
Yeah, nice. My wife actually used to be a lawyer, and she used to talk about LexisNexis all the time. And she's anti-AI, so that would be the perfect session for her to watch.
Yeah, show it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's quite amazing. And last but not least, Kasun, anything happening on the BC side or anything in general that you want to share?
Yeah, Rami. So probably I'll share my screen. So pretty much on the supplier communication agent, which is something interesting, which I would mention, that is an agent which helps to that came recently, but there wasn't any specific build session for it. But it's worth noting on this one because that's a game changer. Like normally when you're dealing with the purchase orders, that you have to spend 50% of the time like communicating back and forth with the vendors and stuff. But this is going to give a real boost for all the supply communication agents, so that they would save a lot of time because it can pre-set up follow-ups with the vendors, and then you can that kind of a setup that's there. So the follow-ups, and then you can check on different vendors what the performance is and with the agent, and there's tons of things which comes with this, so that saves a lot of the back and forth communication. It automatically creates emails, and if you have some dates to be updated in the PO, like maybe it might get delivered probably 2 days late and stuff like that. So it can read the emails and then update back to the purchase order itself. It's really wonderful, and you can communicate back to the vendor. So there's lots of happening inside the F&O space as well. I believe in the BC as well. There's tons of agents are coming in. This is one of the worth noting, but I'll post this link as well in the chat. But there's a lot of things happening at that space as well. So with the MCP coming in, so that we can have the virtual. I'm not sure the virtual entities are there. We can extend that the MCP context to the Dataverse, but once it's there, if it's there already, that's going to be a game changer because we can get the F&O data as well with the MCP. So that we can do. I mean, with the demo that Julie was showing, that's amazing. That the capabilities which we'll have with both F&O and CE, all the data.
Awesome. Yeah. Absolutely. And full circle back, one of the sessions that I really enjoyed watching was actually Julie's session with Sean, and you guys were talking about the aged care scenario where an email comes in of someone who works in an aged care and cannot attend their shift. So the email is automatically processed by an agent. It understands that there's someone who's off sick that cannot attend their shift. It goes into the reserve pool and then optimizes the best person to go in and take over that shift, and then go and send an approval request back to the manager who's busy dealing with patients, and then looks at it and then approves it, and then the whole thing carries on going. What I really enjoyed about sort of Build in general is that a lot of those AI cases, they were not hyper automation. They were true AI cases, true AI scenarios where they put some thought into, is that something that can be done in hyper automation, or do you actually need some AI capabilities in there? And all of them do, which really lifts up the use cases that the community can be using AI for. I think they did a few examples where they were showing an RFP document being generated. That's quite big at the moment. Like, how can I generate those reports very quickly by retrieving information that is available through RAG or through other connections like MCP and things like that. So we're out of time. Julie, put you on the spot. Do you want to just give us a little bit of inspiration or a little bit of a direction, or just like a few words of wisdom to the community in terms of where they need to focus their attention on?
Oh, that's a tough one. Let's see how I go here. But as you know, a lot of the things that you've seen is more like a either generative UI or generative code or code gen, essentially. So something to think about, like how would that transform the way you work and how your clients potentially or end users are going to be using what you are building in the next 1 to 3 years or so. I think it's going to be a game changer, and I think I would really encourage, especially coming from MVPs, to be vocal about the feedback here, because the industry has just moved so fast. I've never seen something like this, where I myself from the product for like almost a decade now, I've never seen such rapid pivot. So something to consider. Very exciting space to be in, but also at the same time, how do we think about it kind of responsibly as well? So
Definitely.
Appreciate you all for having me here.
Yeah.
And learning from you too. I get to learn bits and pieces that my colleagues are working on.
Yeah. No, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you very much for all our speakers. That was an awesome session. I think there was so much to consume. It is recorded, so will be uploading that back onto YouTube. But just following up on what Julie said, go and watch the recordings. There's a few that we shared in here. I'll put them in the description of when I upload that session to YouTube. But there's so much out there that we can get upskilled in, and just use our imagination in terms of what you can do with all that technology. So thank you very much, everybody. And that comes to the end of our session. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Super hungry
Thanks,
right now,
everyone.
Julie.
Go get that ragu or antipasta.
Cool. Thanks, guys.